I've been doing this work for 45 years, which is a long time, and I began before anybody else was even doing it. Nobody knew about reincarnation in the 60s. Nobody knew about metaphysics was unknown. The New Age, nobody would have heard of that. So when I started out, there was nothing. So I go back a long time. And even when it came time to writing my books, I told somebody yesterday it took me 9 years to find a publisher because I had to wait till the rest of the world caught up with me. Even the publishers that I sent it to, damn, what do you mean past lives, reincarnation? We haven't got a clue what you're talking about. So that's what I mean. I started out when there was nothing. And no books to tell a hypnotist what to do or anything. But that's how long I've been doing the hypnosis. And as you know, I don't channel. We've had a lot of very fine channelers here during the conference. I don't channel. All of my work comes through my clients that I work with, because I work with thousands and thousands of people. And if you get the same stories again and again, then they know it has validity, because they don't know what I've already received and they don't know all the other pieces of the puzzle. I have to put it all together. Sometimes getting a piece from one client and then a piece from another client to get the whole concept and the theory together. And I've been accused of being a great fiction writer. And I said, there's no way I could make this material up. I don't think anybody could. It's so way out. And it's getting even more way out as my Convoluted Universe books keep going. So I've got 17 books out now. And some people will come up to me and say, but you said this in this one book, and now you're saying something different. Well, when I was writing the books 25 years ago, that's how long they've been in print, that's what I believed and thought at that time. We're always evolving, we're changing all the time, we're growing. And you can't be expected to believe now the way you did back then. Material I get now, I would never have understood even 30 years ago when I was doing this material. They are very wise. They only give it to you as you can handle it. I say they give you crumbs. They say, we give you a spoonful. Digest that. Then we'll give you another spoonful. Digest that, then we'll give you some more. If you get too much at one time, you can't handle it. It's too overwhelming. And they know that. They know exactly what you can handle. If I would have got the material I'm getting now back in the 70s, I would have thrown it all against the wall and say, I don't understand any of this, and I would have quit. So all these concepts had to be given gradually. And so in the beginning, it really challenged my belief systems. I thought I had the whole theory of reincarnation figured out because I'd been in on it since the beginning. But then they began throwing other things in there. And I said, wait a minute, you're messing with my belief system. I know it all. I got it all figured out. And I didn't like that. But then I got to thinking, if I didn't at least look at it and examine it, I wasn't any better than the church that says just believe what we say and don't ask any questions. But when I began studying the new concept they were giving me, it began making a lot of sense, even though it was a challenge. And once I accepted that, I got another one, a little harder. So that's what it's been doing. It's just been gradually spoon feeding me until we get to the point now I'm getting all of these mind-bending concepts. Somebody just up in the hall said, did you read Guy's book? I said, yes, I read everything that comes in and I make the decisions, and then I do the first editing. So I read that book, and he's into even more complicated things than I am. But look, even 20 years ago, people wouldn't have understood any of this material. They said, you don't give a baby a 3-course meal. You give a baby milk, cereal, crushed vegetables. You don't give a baby a steak. So you have to do it gradually. So there's probably some of you who are still taking your baby steps into the metaphysical world. But I've done it so far now that nothing surprises me. At the end of Convoluted 3, I told them, I don't have to explain who they are because if you read my books, you know. And if you've heard all this conference, everybody's getting the same information from the same them. They just have different names for it. But, where was I there? Okay. At the end of Convoluted 3, I said, well, I think you've told me everything there is to know. I don't think there's anything left that you can tell me. They said, oh, no, there's more. There's a lot more. Then I ended the book with that. And they gave me a few months rest where the stuff wasn't coming through my clients. And then I ended up with enough material to write Convoluted 4. So last year was the first year I did 2 books in 1 year. And if you know, my books are big books. Convoluted 4, I wrote on the road while I was traveling all over the world. And we had to finish it because we had a deadline with the distributor already had it in the catalog. So I'm in Australia giving classes and traveling all over Australia. Every spare moment I had back in the hotel room, I was finishing that book. And thank goodness for technology. I was shipping it off through the ethers by the computer to Julia, each chapter at a time, because she had to put it together to get it to the printer before I got back home. So it was a lot of work. But I ended up taking 300 pages out of Convoluted 4 in order to meet that deadline. So now I'm working on 3 more books at once. So I'm not going to run out of material for a long time. And of course, that 300 pages gives me the basis for another book. I'm not even started on Convoluted 5 yet, but I have a huge amount of transcripts that will be just for that book. The other 3 I'm working on are different subjects. One of them, I'm going way back to the beginning of the material I got way back in the early 80s, when I didn't know about my healing part of this work or any of that. And it's like history, reliving history the way it really was. And I'm thinking, well, people are going to think it's old material because it's not as complicated as what I get now. But it shows what it was like to time travel. I loved the time traveling in my work, being able to go back to those time periods and get what was really happening at that time. So that's the main one I'm working right now, pulling up all of this old material. How many of you read Jesus and the Essenes? A Soul Remembers Hiroshima. These were 2 of the lives of this one woman. She also had 20 other lives. We're loaded with information, historical, theology, cultural. And so I always knew someday I would use that. But I've gone beyond it. So I said, will the readers accept if I go back and retrace the historical parts? So I'm going to see. Another one that I'm working on is the magic in the Middle Ages, during the time of the Inquisitions, and whenever they were killing the so-called witches. And I've been sitting on that material for years because I was so afraid of offending the Catholic Church, because it's a priest that ends up being the murderer at the end of the story when he kills the so-called witch. But I didn't know, how would the church accept all this? How would people accept me blackballing the church, so to speak? But if you've studied history, you know these things did happen. And of course now, with the scandals that are rocking the church, I don't think they're going to be so offended if I come up with this material. So I don't know. But in England, they keep saying, we want that book, because they're interested in the white witchcraft. and what was done in those days. So I've got tons of material. I don't think I'm ever going to get through writing, and they have told me I'll be writing till after I'm 100 anyway. So, and they're keeping me healthy so I can travel, because you know I'm travel all over the world all the time. So this is what I do now, is my main work. But I still see clients when I can. Our waiting list, we think, is you got 4? I thought it was about 2 to 3 years waiting list. 4? Okay. Because it has to be worked in around my travels. The only ones we sneak in now are the ones that have threatening illnesses, life-threatening, or they're getting ready for surgery, or they're coming from foreign countries. And they come from all over the world to see me in that little bitty town I live out here, 2,000 people. I can't hide anymore. They find me some way. But those are the only ones we're trying to make room for, the ones that are real serious cases. Because as I went through this all these years with the time travel, the past life regression, and all the information I was getting, I found a way where we could heal instantly anything, absolutely anything, any disease, any illness, everything. I have them coming with every illness you could possibly think of. I see miracles every day in my office. And they wanted me to teach this method so everybody would know the importance of how you can use your mind. You have no idea how important, how powerful your mind is. You are a great and powerful creature. You should never, ever be sick. No aches, no pains, nothing. Because the body is a miraculous machine that's been created and perfected to take care of itself and heal itself if we don't interfere. So that's what I'm trying to show people. If you have an illness or something, you have done it yourself. You make yourself sick. And some of my clients say, well, what do you mean I don't want to be sick? But if the mind is that powerful that you can make yourself sick, it's also powerful enough to heal you. We find out, why did I do this to myself? And that's what I teach in my technique, is how to find this. And I've been perfecting this technique now for 45 years. And I'm teaching it everywhere, all over the world. We have thousands of students now in every country you can imagine. They're all learning it because it's fast, it's quick, and extremely effective. That's why I'm going to be here this next week. We're having one of the biggest classes I've ever had is going to be this week. Level 2 starts tomorrow, but then we have level 1. We've got about 120 people in that class. The largest one before that was one in Australia when I had over 90-something. And I have doctors, psychiatrists, all kinds of medical personnel are taking the classes and incorporating this into their practice. So you see, I've come a long way since the 60s. But that's the idea, is to show people you're more than just a physical body. You have such wonderful capabilities. And now is the time to bring all of this back and to show other people how we can do it ourselves, how you can use the power of your mind. So it's no longer a pipe dream, it is really happening. So that's what I'm doing anyway. We leave after this conference is over and my class is over. We have 3 days and we head for Europe. And we won't be back until October, 3 months. I'll have 6 classes all over Europe. We're going to Warsaw, Poland, Helsinki, Finland, Munich, Germany, and we always do one every year in England. Then I'll have a class in Rome. And I just got back 2 months ago from China. I go to Russia a lot. So, I mean, it's, when you sign on for these assignments, I said, be careful what you sign on for, because you got to agree to do what they want you to do. Go where they want you to do what you want to do. But they have told me many times through my clients, you find your passion you find what you're really supposed to do, what you're here for, you don't get sick and you don't age because you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And you're happy doing it. So that's probably why they said, I found what our mission is after raising a family and doing all this other thing. That's why I said I've had several lives in one. You know, my husband was in a wheelchair for 25 years after he was almost killed in the Navy and his body was crushed. So we had to get all that behind us and raising a big family before the universe said, now it's time to step into this role. So you never know what kind of a plan or contract you have made on the other side before you come in. So don't try to get out of it too soon. The best is yet to come. You don't know what the rest of the contract is. First, you have to get rid of all the old junk, the garbage and the baggage out of your life. And then you can move into what you really came for. So many people come to see me and they said, I want out. I want to commit suicide. I don't want to be here anymore. They don't realize what they've contracted to do. Of course, if you get out too soon, you got to come back and do it again. You don't get out of anything. That's not the way the law of karma works. Okay, I'm not going to go into too much of the 3 waves of volunteers. I think last year, that's what I mostly talked about, wasn't it? That's the book I finished last year, and it's making waves all over the world. But I want to mention it. It's the 3 waves of volunteers in the New Earth. But as I said, all of my work is an accumulation of the different information that comes through all of these thousands of people that I see. That's how I come up with these theories. First, let's talk about the Earth School. You've all signed on to be here in the Earth School. And I'm going to talk about that first to show where you have come to now as we're in 2012. And the different speakers have been talking about God, and this is all in my books also. And that's why I said a lot of these concepts were very challenging in the beginning. Okay, we all began with God. I have so many clients coming to me, and on their list of questions is always, where did I come from? But they always say, why am I here, too? Well, where did I come from? And I tell them we all came from the same place. No, I want to know what's my home planet. There's no such thing. We all came from the same place. Other planets are just one of the schools that we sign on to learn at. But that's not home, not the real home. We all began at the same place. We all started with God, or what they call the source. Now, I've had many, many people go back to the source. They go back to when they were with God before they ever started on this long journey to become humans. Humans are kind of like the last part of the whole thing. This is the worst part, really. But we all began at the same place, and I've had people go back and experience it, and they always describe God the same way. First, you have to get over the idea that God is a man. He's not a man. If anything, he would be a woman. Because women are the creative power. But he's neither one. He's not male or female. There is no gender. And when people go back to be with God, they're just doing instead of going to past lives, this is what they do. They go back to the beginning. They always describe it the same way, that God is like a huge energy force. They describe it like a big bright light. Some of them say they are in the sun, but it's not hot. Other ones say the great central sun is what they call it. But it's a huge light. And when they're there, there's total love. They don't want to leave. They're all together. Everyone is together, and they all want to stay there. They don't want to leave. It is so much love and is so much beauty. And when I've had people go back there, they say, "Don't wake me up. I want to stay here because it's so beautiful." And afterwards, the ones I work with, they always come through the people I work with, and they said that the person who had the session, they wanted to get a taste of what it was like. It was one of their questions. They wanted to know, what is God really like? They wanted a taste of home. But they said, we can just give her a taste. If we showed her what it was really like, she wouldn't want to return. But you gave her enough so that at least she'd have an idea of what it was like. It's so beautiful and so wonderful. They said, a human being cannot really understand the totality of God, of the source. It is so enormous. They said, our belief in God and our concept of God is like a tiny thread compared to what it really is. We cannot understand the totality of it. Then they said, consider the other people out there who don't even have the metaphysical background. Their concept of God isn't even as big as a tiny thread. That's how hard it is to understand. But they said it's the glue that holds everything together. If it were to wink out for a fraction of a second, everything would disintegrate. That's how powerful this is. And I've went into a lot of this in my books, the different versions of the dreamer dreams a dream, life is an illusion. One concept I like to bring up that may shake you up a little. This building, this room, didn't even exist until you collectively decided to be here today. Is that a little hard to understand? This is the kind of concepts I'm getting. It's the collective consciousness of how it creates. That when we decided to come here, we constructed this thing out of the energy, because everything is energy. And that's how it works. But it's a little hard to understand. We try to think of our poor brains, But they said the human mind will never be able to understand it all. That's what I was so worried about Guy's brain. He's challenging his brain because they said it's impossible for the human mind to know it all. It's not the brain, it's the mind, because there are no concepts in the mind to explain the totality of what it's really all about. So they drop crumbs. They give us little spoonfuls to digest. But we will never know what it's really all about until we cross over. That's when we know everything over there. And I had one man at one of my classes said, but I want to know it all. They said, it's impossible. All we're supposed to do is focus on this life right now and try to do the very best you can in this life. That's all you're expected to do, because the other would be way too confusing if you knew everything that was going on out there outside of your range of perception. So anyway, when we all began, we were all part of God. This beautiful light, this huge energy, total love, we all began there. And God decided he wanted to learn, he wanted to know, he was curious. So what happened? He burst out in all directions. It's called, some of them call it the Big Bang Theory. And I've had a lot of people argue with me about these things. I'm the reporter, remember, the reporter, the investigator. I report what I get. It burst out in all directions, and when it did, all these tiny sparks flew out in all directions. Some of these sparks became galaxies. Some of them became universes. Many, many of them became your own individual soul. When I take people back in the sessions to find out what you really, really are, all they see is a tiny little spark of light. That's what your soul is, your spirit, a tiny little spark of light. And that's how you all began. You are not a body, you have a body. This is just a suit of clothes, a costume you're wearing right now to play this part, this role in this stage play that you're involved in. Everything is an illusion. Nothing is real. I've had people go through the death experiences, and after they've died and they're on the spirit side, they look back at the life and they'll say, it was just a play. I can see all the actors on stage getting ready to come out and play their parts. I can see the actors in the wings getting ready to come on. And they said, but when I was there, it was so hard and so difficult. But now that I'm on the other side, it was like a blink of an eye. We get caught up in the illusion. So you are the producer, director, and actor in your own play. You're also the script writer, but the script is being written as it goes along. You know what that means? You can change the script anytime you want. You're the writer. You're the actor. You don't like the way the scene is going? Change it. This is how much power we have, and we don't realize it. So you're just an actor wearing a costume to play this part. But when God burst out and sent everyone out, he said, go, my children, and learn. Learn everything there is to learn. Have every experience there is to experience. He said, there is no bad, there is no good. There's only lessons and experiences. And you choose these every time you come into a life. And what you chose to learn. We all have bad things happen in our lives. That's life. But what did you learn from it? Remember, you created it to learn something from. You made it maybe more difficult than it should have been, but you created it to learn something. And I have clients that I ask that to, and they'll say, I didn't learn anything. It was just a horrible experience. What happens then if you say, I didn't learn anything? You got to take that class over again. Earth is nothing but a school that you signed on here to experience. There are many, many schools out there because when we start out, God said, learn everything, everything that's possible, everything there is, things you can't even imagine, and then bring it back to me. And when we're all done with all of our schools, with all of our lessons, we take all the information back, download it into the gigantic computer that is God, that is the source. I asked them one time, well, then what does he do with it? He said, starts over again, recreating again. So it's unending. But when you start on the schools, you go to other planets, you go to other dimensions. You have to know what all of that is like. And I proved this by taking hundreds of people. I never know where they're going to go. I think they're going to go in a past life. They don't. They go on these other planets, other dimensions, and they learn whatever it is to be learned there. But when you come to Earth, they said this is the most difficult planet in the universe. It's the hardest. It's the densest. It's the heaviest. They don't want to come here. It's very, very difficult. have a lot more fun on the other planets. And also they have a lot of fun on the spirit side. They'd like rather better stay over there because they're learning a lot there. There's schools, there's all kinds of things on the spirit side. And I've written about all of these things in my books. But when they decide they're going to come to Earth and take on Earth's school, they're warned. This is going to be very difficult. You know this, don't you? Once you sign on for the Earth school, it's a long school. You can't get out of it until you are finished. You have to take all the grades, all the steps. You can't jump from kindergarten to college. You have to finish this class before you go to the next class. If you fail that class, there's no judgment. You just take it over again. And I've had many clients who are taking the same class over and over and over again. They go through maybe 4 or 5 lives with the same people, same circumstance, and they still haven't got it. You probably know people like that in your own lives, drawing the same circumstances to them time after time, the same kind of people to them time after time. Like, when are you going to get it? Now, the universe, one's running all of this, and I'm glad somebody's running it. They don't care how long it takes you to pass one class, one grade. You have eternity. But do you want to take eternity to learn one little lesson? While everybody else is going on to high school, to college, you're still stuck on the 2nd grade. If that's what you want, it's your free will, you can do it. But if you realize you're just repeating the same class over and over again and not moving forward, then it finally begins to get into your head, okay, I don't need to keep repeating this. I'm going to move on. Then you go to the next class, the next grade, which may or may not be easier, may be harder, but at least it'll be different. Because there's no judging. You judge yourself. You decide yourself what you're going to learn when you come into a life. You set up the circumstances. Everybody here has been saying the same things. You choose your parents. You choose where you're going to live, the environment, what is going to be the best for you. You decide it all. But you have all these advisors over there, and they're always trying to help you. They can't tell you what to do, but they can help you. They said, are you sure you want to do this? And they said, oh yeah, I want to get rid of everything at once. I want to get rid of all the karma. And you pile your plate pretty full. Are you sure you want to do that? Yeah, I want to get it over with all at once. Say, okay, we'll be there to help you, but it's going to be very difficult. One of my sessions, I think it was one in the last book I just wrote about, they were talking about when they're having the discussion with the advisors, they had a big bowl of marbles. And they said, everything you decide to do in this next life is a marble. A person you're going to be associated with, a parent's, child's, a lesson, a circumstance is a marble. And the woman in the session said, my bowl is full of marbles. And they keep saying, are you sure you want to take on all these marbles? Oh, yeah, I can do it. Then you get here, and all during the session, they were talking about problems with her husband, problem with her father, and they kept saying, that was one of the marbles. You chose it. They said, it doesn't matter if you get rid of all the karma in one lifetime. It's not expected. It's too hard. It's too much. Do what you can. Then you can always come back next time and finish up some more. Don't be in too big of a hurry to pile your plate too full. Okay, but let me go through some of the steps of the Earth School. And remember, the majority of you, I'm going to get to the exceptions in a few minutes. That's the 3 waves. The majority of you signed on for this school. Can't get out of it until you're done. So when you go to Earth School, one of the things that makes it so difficult is you have to be everything. Being human is the last stage of it. Some of this might be surprising, but if you've read my books, you know I've had many cases of this. First, you have to know what it is like to be the air. They said one of the most important lessons I could teach people was that everything has consciousness. Everything. Everything is alive, just vibrating at a different frequency. Means that table is alive, the floor is alive, the bottle of water is alive, the clock is alive. Everything has consciousness. It's just vibrating at a different level, different frequency. In the fibers of the rug are universes, from the microcosm to the macrocosm. It's much more than you could possibly even imagine. But everything is alive. So before you get to the human level, you've got to know what it's like to be everything before you get here. You can't just suddenly jump into the middle of grade school. So I've had many people be air. I had them be where they are when the universes are being created, and they're part of that. They're part of the elemental energy that is used for creation. Creating the universes, creating the planets, creating the galaxies, the suns. I've even had them be on Earth whenever there was nothing here, and they were creating the water. You've all had lives like this. Look at what a powerful creature you were. You were creating. That's our innate ability to create. So you were forms of life like that. Then you have to know what is it like to be a rock, to be the dirt. Everything is alive. You don't know how many clients I've had who have been rocks. And when they're a rock, they said, life is very slow. And one of the questions I always ask during my session is, why did you pick that life for them to see? And one woman who was a rock, they said, she thinks she doesn't have any freedom now. Remember what it was like when you were a rock. So there's always logic there. And I had one people email me afterwards, and they said, I understood it all but that. I can't see how we could be something like that. But I'm trying to show you everything is alive. Everything has life. If we thought about these things, we would treat nature a lot better. We would take better care of the earth if we realized everything is consciousness and we have been part of everything. So then you have to be plants. And I've had them be just about every plant you can think of. What's it like to be an ear of corn? What's it like to be a flower? When I've had people go to a lifetime when they're a flower, a beautiful rose, they said it's nice, except it doesn't last very long. And you can be a nice ear of corn, like out there in the field and the wind is blowing. You never know if a cow's going to come along and eat you. But it's getting to know what it's like. And they all have a personality. They all have a consciousness. And with my curiosity, I always want to know, what is it like to be these different things? Then you have to know, what is it like to be an animal? What's it like to be a wolf and be able to run? What's it like to be a bird and be able to fly? I've had many people be birds, and it's wonderful the way they describe it. I'm not going to have a lot of time to go into all of these different things. I've had people be every kind of insect you could imagine. And I always wanted to know, how does a spider see? How does an ant see? And the information is incredible when they get into the mind of these different creatures. Everything is alive. And the animals, the way they react, their instincts. One I will bring up, the cats are interesting. The cats are different. Remember, everything is energy. The dogs rely on smell, but the cats can see things we can't see. They said when they look at you or look at another person, they don't see you first. First they see an energy. Then it forms into a person. And how many of you have watched cats staring at things you can't see? I had a cat that used to do that. We knew we had a ghost in this one house we were living in when my husband was in Vietnam. And he'd sit at the bottom of the steps, staring up the steps with that tail flicking back and forth, like they do when they're watching something. And I'd say, oh, Boots, go catch a mouse or something, stop it. But they can see energy that we can't see. So everything has a little difference about it. But you've all been these things. In between the animals and the plants are the nature spirits, the fairies, the dryads, the gnomes. When I'm in Ireland, they identify with the leprechauns, all the little people, the nature spirits. Their job is to take care of nature, take care of the plants, take care of the animals. You've all been those also. You've all had lives as that. So you can see when I'm doing past life regressions, it's not simple. I never know what's going to come up. And it's exciting because I never know what the client's going to find. But it helps you to realize, take better care of nature because we're all one. We have been part of it. You finally get to the point where you're going to be human. When you have pulled away from the group soul that are animals, and you become an individual and have an individual personality, then you become a human being. Okay, now you're in a human body. You have to be everything. Not just one life, that doesn't cut it. You can't possibly learn everything in one lifetime. You have to be male and female many, many times. And usually when I say that, I've had somebody in the audience, some man usually will say, what do you mean I've always been a man? What would you learn if you had always been one sex throughout eternity on earth? What would you learn? You wouldn't learn very much, would you? There has to be balance. There's always got to be balance. You have to know what is it like to be male and female. This is one of the explanations for homosexuality. They've been one sex too many times. And the ones on the other side say, okay, now it's time for you to change sex. And a lot of times they don't want to. They're comfortable with that sex. Now it's time for you to learn what it's like to be the opposite. So they come in, and there's a lot of confusion because they're not used to being in that female body or that male body. And I think this helps us to understand this better if we know what's really going on. And maybe the next time they come back, they'll be more comfortable with that body. But this is one of the explanations. You have to be everything. You have to be male and female many, many times because you must have balance. Then you have to be rich and poor. And sometimes being rich is not a blessing, it's a curse. Depends on what your other past lives have been, how much karma you've had to figure out. But then you have to live on every continent in the world, every country in the world. You have to be every religion in the world, every race in the world. Now, what does this do to the prejudice and the judgmental things, if you really understood that? Because I've had clients who were very prejudiced against a race or a religion. Okay, guess what happens the next time you come back? How does the law of karma work? You have to be the very thing that you are prejudiced against. That's the way it balances out. This is why it helps us to realize when you really understand the rules and laws of reincarnation, there is no prejudice, there is no judging, because we all have been these things, or we're going to be if we don't watch the way we handle it. I wish the churches would understand these things and teach them, because they're such valuable lessons for people to know. But you have to be everything. Then, after you've been every religion, every race, every country, you have to be in every situation that is possible. On every side of every coin, of every situation. That's why you can't judge where somebody else is. You don't know where they are in their evolution. And you get people who keep making the same mistakes. They're doing bad things to each other, creating more and more karma. They're not moving forward. But that's where they are. You never know another person's plan, what they came in with. You can't judge them. We just say, well, they're a slow learner. They're in their path of evolution. They haven't reached this point yet. It's not bad and it's not good. It just means they have not got to that point yet. I've had some people say, I've been told I was an old soul. I said, if you're an old soul, you're a slow learner. Taken a long time to get it all down. Is this hard for you to understand? I think it makes you look at things a little differently. Some people go through lives that nothing happens to them. They skate through life and it's just very easy. They're living a resting life. But you don't know what they are resting up from. The last life may have been horrible. Maybe they were killed in war or something. Or maybe they're resting up for something. This is why you can't judge. So you start looking at things a little differently. And that's what I like about this work, because I never know what's going to come out when we do the sessions. Okay, this is the way it has been up until now. Now the world is going through an enormous change. These old paradigms are not going to apply anymore. Because so many of us have taken so long to learn the lessons, we're caught on the wheel of karma. We haven't got it. We keep making the same mistake over and over and over again. And you don't get out of anything. You have to take that lesson until you learn it. And you keep coming back with the same people, just playing different roles. You be the husband this time, I'll be the wife. Or you be the mother, I'll be the child. Maybe we can figure it out. But it's the wheel of karma. One of the only things that Jesus came to teach us was how to get off the wheel of karma. We were going round and around and around. We were not moving upward. So he came to show us how to get off of the wheel. Of course, the only way is always with love. Love is the greatest thing there is. God, the source, is total love. And that's all they're ever trying to teach anyone. It's just that a life on Earth is so much difficult. I said this is the most difficult planet in the universe. The densest, the heaviest. They say when you sign on to come here, they really admire you. You have to be very brave to take that step and to sign up on this school. So the majority of us are caught on this wheel going round and around and around for how many hundreds and thousands of lifetimes? We're not going anywhere. And I'm not going to have time to go into the seeding of the planet Earth and how our physical bodies came to be. I talked about that last time anyway, and how we were all created. But I'll just say they, so you'll understand anyway. It's all in my books. But let me see, where am I going here? Okay. They said, give this beautiful planet a creature with intelligence and free will, and see what he does with it. This planet is very unique. We are the only planet in the universe that has free will. There's a lot of things about this planet that we're the only one. The only planet in the universe that has free will. I've had people go back to planets where they don't have free will. Believe me, they don't like it. They want to get out of there as quick as they can. They don't like it at all. So having free will is different. But when they created Earth, there was a prime directive. It's the Star Trek directive. If you know anything about Star Trek, it's not fiction anyway. Because I know the story of how it began and Rodwell and all of that. What's his name? Not Rodwell. Huh? What? No, the one who created Star Trek. Yeah. That's not fiction anyway. But the prime directive was always non-interference. My books will tell you how the earth came about, how life started, the whole thing. I'm not going to go back through that. I'm not going to have time. But they said, give this planet a creature with intelligence and free will. But the prime directive was non-interference. Once you have created a civilization and it begins to go, it's on its own. You cannot interfere with the development of that civilization. This is a prime directive, and they sit back and shake their heads saying, what are these kids doing? But they can't interfere. And I said, well, you know, there are many times they have given us the inventions, they've given us the next advancements. Every culture in the world has the legends of the culture bringer. There's always the legend of who starts, like the corn woman in the American Indians, who gave them how to plant. There's always the ones that teach them about fire, about hunting. These are in the legends of every culture in the world. And in all of these cultures, the culture bringer always comes from the sky or from across the water to give them what they need. And because they can live as long as they want, these are ETs I'm talking about, you probably know. They can live as long as they want. They lived with these cultures to teach them and show them what to do. Because they can live as long as they want, they were treated as gods, and this is where all of the legends of the gods and goddesses came from in all of the cultures of the world. So whenever it came time for the earth to need the new advancement, they would give it to them. And I said, well, isn't that interference? They said, no. When it comes time for you to have this, we give it to you as a gift one time. Then it's up to you what you do with it. Because many times down through history, I've had numerous examples where they would give the person something and they would turn it into a weapon, or they would use it for something it was not intended to be used for. Like whenever I think it was the Mayans or the Aztecs, when they used to cut out the hearts and present it to the gods, the sacrifices, they were teaching that culture medical practices and how to heal the body. But then something would go wrong and they wouldn't understand it, so they began cutting out the heart to present it to the gods. So there were many times when they would teach the culture something, it would be turned around into a weapon or something they didn't intend it to be. And I said, well, can't you just come back and say you're not doing it right? They said, that's interference. We give it to you once. What you do with it is free will. You don't do it right, it's up to you. They sit there and shake their heads, but they can't do anything about it. And I'm coming up to now because the only time they can ever interfere with the people on earth is if we would get to the point that we were going to blow up the world. If we got to that point that we were going to blow up the world, they would have to step in and stop us. Because if we blew up the world, it would have reverberations throughout the universe. It wouldn't just be here. There are many, many dimensions around us. In these dimensions, there are cities, there are people living in these other dimensions. There's life. We can't see it because it's vibrating at a different frequency. Just like if you watch a propeller blade or a fan blade, when it speeds up, it becomes invisible. These other dimensions are like that. So they said if we were to blow up this world, it would send reverberations throughout the solar system, throughout the galaxy, and throughout all these other countless dimensions. And it would create like undeclared war on these people. So if we got to that point, they would have to step in and stop us because we would mess with the whole order of the universe. This has happened many, many times down through history. One example was Atlantis, but I found many other civilizations and cultures before Atlantis, when it was always man. And I'm sorry, guys, but it's usually the men. The men that get greedy, they want power, they want more, are the ones who decide to use whatever the power is in those civilizations in the wrong way. They came to the height of development and civilization many, many times, and then it was always the men decided to use the abilities in the wrong way. And then they would have to step in and destroy the civilization. This is what happened with Atlantis. It got to the point they couldn't allow it to go on. And it's in my last book, I think it is, isn't it? The reason why Atlantis was not ever what I thought it was. I've written about Atlantis many times, but this was one time when we found out the real reason. And it goes along exactly with what I'm finding out. I said, I'd never heard that explanation before. They said, that's because we've never told anyone until now. But when it gets to that point, it has to happen. But they can't destroy everyone. Has to be some people left to start the civilization again. But it's like blowing a fuse. The ones who are left don't have the memory, the knowledge of what they did before. It's like starting all over again from the primitive stages. You imagine what that would be like if you had the ability to use your mind and do absolutely anything. You had crystals in these cultures that could do anything. All of a sudden, it's all gone. You go back to being primitive. Start all over again. This has happened time and time again down through history. And they said every time we have to start over and a lot is lost. They said, now we reach that point again. We could very easily destroy ourselves. But this time, they're not going to allow it to happen to where we'll have to start over again. Too much time is lost. Now, okay, with everything was going fine. They were watching the earth. That's why some of them are called the Watchers. They watch the earth. They watch the development. And see, now whenever we need a next invention, the next part of our culture, they can't come and live with us because there's too many people. So the next development is put into the atmosphere, the next invention. Whoever gets it is the one who invents it. They don't care who invents it as long as it is in the timeline that they want. So whoever gets it is the one who brings it into our time. You all know, have heard about people all over the world working on the same invention at the same time. This is why it's getting ready to be developed. You have no idea how much energy I feel coming off this audience. Oh boy. course, you're all focused on me, too. That's another reason why I sit down when I do this. I just say that so we can break this concentration to keep me going here, because it's like waves of energy coming off of you. Okay. Don't bombard me right now, anyway. Okay. So this is why many people are always working on the same invention at the same time, because it has to be in this timeline. But they watch us carefully to see what we're doing and monitoring us. So they were watching us, and everything was going so-so until 1945. We had just come through the horrible World War II, but they're still watching us and thinking, when are these kids going to get this figured out, you know? But they can't interfere. But then at the end of 1945 is when we dropped the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. When that happened, it really got their attention. So we better get down there and see what these kids are playing with. And if you know anything about ufology, because I've written 4 books on it, I've been 25 years working with the ETs and the abductions, and I spoke at every UFO conference in the world. I'm getting ready to go to Istanbul, the largest world summit UFO conference there. But if you know anything about ufology, in the end of the war is when the big mass of UFO sightings began at that time. This is why. We better get down there and find out what's going on, because we were not supposed to have atomic power at that time. It was too soon. When we were supposed to have atomic power, it was supposed to be used for good. And I said, well, we do use it for good. We use it for power, for energy. They said, it will never be what it was supposed to be, because it was created as a weapon. So it will always have the aura of negativity around it, because it was created as a weapon. It will never be what it was supposed to be. And they knew, with the way humans were caught on the wheel of karma. They said they can't even figure out their own lives. They can't take care of their own lives. How are they ever going to be able to manage something of this magnitude? So they had to do something, or we would destroy the world. Of course, you could say, well, let's just go in and say, stop it, you can't do that. That's against the law of non-interference. You can't interfere. So there are councils. If you have a longer lecture, I go into all this about the councils and everything. Councils over everything. There's rules and regulations that run everything. There are boards, there are hierarchy. And they go back to the council and they say, look what's going on. We've got to do something, but we can't interfere. We can't just go in and say, stop it. So they came up with an idea that I think is brilliant. And this is what I wrote about in the 3 Waves of Volunteers. Now, some of you may have already heard this, but I'm going to repeat it again anyway, because it does go into what's happening right now. They came up with an idea that I thought was brilliant. They said, we can't interfere from the outside. What if we influence from the inside? The people on earth are never going to be able to solve this problem. They're too caught on the wheel of karma. What if we ask for volunteers to come in who have never been on earth before? Pure souls that are not caught on the wheel, have never been here. What if we ask for volunteers to come and help Earth? Then they're not interfering, because the individual souls are making the decision. So the call went out, pure souls, souls who have never been to Earth before, not been caught up in this mess that we have here. And the call went out, Earth is in trouble. Who wants to go and help? And I've had many people during the sessions are at like meetings on the spirit side, and they're being told what's going on. Who wants to volunteer and go and help Earth? And one of my clients said, I stupidly raised my hand. You got to hear, what was I thinking of? You know? That's another thing. You know, part of coming to Earth, we are the only planet in the universe, again, where you forget when you come to Earth. You forget your plan, you forget your contracts, you forget why you're here. Isn't Earth unique? We're the only planet in a lot of things. So we're the only one that you forget what you came for. When you come into the body, I've had them coming in and they'll say, I got to remember, I got to remember, I got to remember. Then they're born and they'll say, I don't remember anymore. The veil comes down, the blinders come on, and you don't remember. I asked them one time, wouldn't it be easier if we knew why we were here? If we knew our connection with all of the other people in our lives, wouldn't that make it easier? They said, no, it wouldn't be a test if you knew the answers. Here again, we're in school. But right now, everything is changing. The vibrations and the frequency, everything is changing so fast that we're beginning to remember. We're beginning to bring it back. The veil is thinning. We're beginning to get the information back. That's what this time right now is all about, remembering. That's why so many of them, we go through life after life after life, not knowing what we're doing. Now, we're beginning to get back. But we have to find our way back because we don't remember, stumble our way back to find our connection to God again, to the source again. That's what right now is all about, to see why we're here and what we're supposed to be doing. We're gradually getting back right now. So, I'm trying to keep, I got so much information pouring into my head, I'm trying to sort it all out here. See, the vibrations and frequencies right now, this is the most important time in history to be alive. Nothing like this has ever happened in the history of the universe before. Everything is changing. That's why they said, we don't have time for you to destroy the world again and start over again. There's no more time. We have to continue on. But these volunteers were asked to come in. I found them coming from one of two places when I do the sessions. Now, I've been doing this for so long. It's been over 10 years now, I think. I've been getting this information. It's been leaking in. And that's when I came up with the theory of the three waves. I don't even remember where that term came from, really. But I began finding from the ages of my clients and what they were reporting and what they were saying about their own lives. They were all saying the same thing, that there's a big similarity here, and that's why I came up with the three waves according to their age groups. But when I take them back, instead of going back to a past life, they went to two different places. I found now if I take people into past lives and they go to a real past life, that means they're still working karma out. But the vast majority that are coming to see me now are one of these volunteers. And instead of going to a past life, many of them go back to the source, back to God. That's where I've gotten so much information about that. They all report the same thing. Can you imagine what it would be like to have never, ever been in any kind of a body at all? Always been with God, with love, and suddenly, here you are in this mess, low, dense vibrations. You imagine what that would be like to the person. They don't know what's going on, they don't understand it, they don't want to be here, etc., etc. And I'm going to give some of the characteristics of these three waves. But the other place these people would go to, they would go back to where they were ETs, on spaceships or on other planets, other dimensions. And they're quite happy. They're living a life there. They have their families, their jobs on other planets. They're quite content. They have no desire to leave that. That's the school they're in at that time. But they heard the call. So many of them said, okay, I'll take a little side trip. I'll go to Earth and help out with this problem. But then we're going back to their regular life. None of these people want to stay. They want to do their job and then get out of here. If they stay, they're afraid they're going to accumulate karma. And I've had cases where the person will go back to where they're an ET on board a spaceship, and they say they're going to come and do this. They leave their body on the spaceship. Sometimes it is put into suspended animation, and it's waiting for them to finish this life so they can go back and continue their life back there. If you read enough of my books, you know a lot of these concepts are not too far-fetched if you start understanding what this is all about. So, they have come here to volunteer, but they don't understand Earth at all. Okay, let me go back now. Earth is a living being. You probably realize that. That's what I was saying. Everything is conscious, everything is alive. Earth is a living being. In the beginning, when everything was created, it consented to allow another race of beings to live on it. Human beings, animals. We could not have been allowed to live here if the earth itself had not agreed. So we're living here with permission of the earth. Look what we're doing to it. But the earth is a living being. It also evolves. It's getting ready right now. It's going through, moving into its next incarnation. Just the way people go from body to body in reincarnation, the earth is now going into its next incarnation. It's the same process, it's just that it takes it a lot longer. It's going to go, it's evolving. It doesn't care if the human race goes with it or not. It would just be happier if we didn't go with it. He said, we're like fleas on a dog. Just be better to get rid of us altogether. But if we want to go, we have to change our vibration and frequency to match the earth. Because as the earth moves into, it's going into another dimension. And this is where we're talking about the splitting of the two earths, the old earth and the new earth. Because remember what I said a while ago, in the other dimensions, everything becomes invisible. The new earth is moving into another dimension, and it's happening slowly. I think it began about, 2003. Some of my emails, people think it might have began a little earlier than that. But it began moving about that time, changing the vibrations and the frequencies as it moves. A lot of this is explaining what the earthquakes are all about, the tsunamis, all the things that are happening as it's shaking up and separating of the two worlds. As it changes vibration and frequencies, it's speeding up. You all know time is speeding up. Everything is happening faster. They've proven this. In the book, they said we were living 16-hour days instead of 24, and this has been scientifically proven. And then now my daughter said she's heard it's 12-hour days. This is how fast time is speeding up. Said it doesn't matter what the clock says, time is an illusion anyway. But we are living in a shorter amount of hours in a day because of the way that everything is speeded up, the vibrations and the frequencies. And it is changing and becoming a new earth. If we want to go, our vibrations and frequencies have to change also to match the earth as it shifts into the next dimension. This is why people keep talking about the shift, the ascension. It's in the Bible, in the book of Revelation, but it's much more complicated than what they reported at that time. If we want to go, our vibrations and frequencies have to change to match the earth as it goes through this. You can't change the vibration and frequency of your body that quickly. If you do, the body would disintegrate. Everything has to be happening gradually. That's why I believe it started about 2003, a gradual process. As our bodies change the vibration and frequencies to match that of the earth. Now, these 3 waves of volunteers that have come in, that are volunteering, their energy is needed to help with the ascension, to help with the shifting. It is needed to help raise this. We can't do it by ourselves. The ones who are caught on the wheel of karma can't do it. They would be with the old earth and be destroyed. So the first wave of volunteers, I like to think are, well, now I think it starts after World War II. Those born after 1945 till they're about, I guess, 40, 50, maybe late 30s, that age group. And I've had some people tell me they have the same characteristics and they're in their early 60s. That's possible. And other ones may have been, they said, may have been sent as forerunners to test the waters. Because they told me, we have tried this 3 times. The other times we couldn't get the critical mass and it didn't work. But now we've got it. Hundreds of thousands of volunteers have come in. We have tipped the scales and we have the critical mass now to save the world. That's why we're moving into the other dimension. But the first wave are those in that age group. They don't want to be here. They don't like it here. They don't understand the violence. Why do people hurt each other? What's this all about? They don't understand emotions, especially strong emotions. Strong emotions frighten them because they don't, you can see why. They've never experienced life on earth. They're just thrown into this mess. They don't understand emotions. They don't like violence. And they're always saying, I want to go home. I don't like it here. I don't know where home is. I just know it's not here. And I get thousands of emails. So if I don't answer your emails, be aware that I do read them. It's just that I can't possibly answer them all. But in many of them, the people will say, I can remember being a little child standing in the kitchen talking to my mother and saying, Mommy, I want to go home. And they said, well, you are home. No, I'm not. They know this is not where home is. And they're very unhappy here. And many in the first wave have tried to commit suicide to get out. That's how unhappy they are. And the first book I wrote about this was Keepers of the Garden. Back in the 80s when I found my first one of this, and I didn't even know what it was. Now, after that, I began getting many, many people coming to me telling me the same story. The second wave had it easier. They would be 30s, 20s, 30s, maybe some of the 40s, in that age group. Some of these age groups overlap. Because people would tell me, well, I think I've got these characteristics, but I'm not in that age group. The second wave followed in the footsteps of the first wave, so they had it a little easier. I asked them one time, why did the first wave have it so hard? They said, because somebody had to be the one to be the way shower, the pioneer, to start that out, to set the path for the other ones to follow. That's why it was more difficult. So the second wave have come in. They are what I call antennas, generators, channelers of energy. They are here receiving this energy to send the energy to all the other people of the world. And part of my, when the clients come in and they have their list of questions, the main question, I call it the universal question, they always want to know, why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? And, that's the main question. So when I get these people, they always want to know, why am I here? They're always told, you're here to generate energy. You're here to spread the energy. The second wave people can walk through a crowded mall of people and affect everyone that they come in contact with. They don't know it consciously, but they affect every single person they come in contact with because they are channeling this energy to help change the people and raise the vibrations of the earth. That's what I mean. That's why they're here to volunteer these jobs. And the people say, well, what am I supposed to be doing? They said, you're not supposed to do anything. You're just supposed to be. And this one man said, but I want to do something. You are doing something just by being. But there's a paradox here. These people are supposed to be spreading energy to people, but they don't like people. They'd rather stay home by themselves. Many of the second wave live alone. They work from their homes. They have no desire to go out and mix with people. They don't like the energies of the other people. Many of them don't get married. First and second wave, many of them don't marry and don't have children because having children, you create karma. And when these volunteers come in to Earth, they have a coating, a covering, a sheath over their body, their soul, to keep them from accumulating karma. It kind of bounces off of them because they don't want them to be stuck here. Do your job and get out. So they're just here to help. So the second wave had it a little easier, but still you're here just to generate energy and help people. The third wave, of course, are the children, the new children that have come in. Everybody's DNA is being changed. It's all part of this shifting into the new earth. Everybody's DNA is being changed. Now with this shifting, the older people are having the hardest time adapting. Of course, the young people are already there. Their DNA is already where it's supposed to be when they come in. They're so advanced. They're there already. That's the third wave. The gift of the world are these children. But the other ones, we have to catch up. But I said it has to be a gradual process, a gradual shifting. And many of these, especially the older people, they said if you can't handle it, you'll transition. Because now the energy is speeding up and they're moving much, much faster. Last month, we had 2 big shifts in energy. I felt them, I don't know if you did or not. There was one the beginning of June and one the middle of June. And I'm going to be describing some of the symptoms to the body that happens when it makes these jumps. And if you're aware of it, you'll know when it happens, you'll feel it in your body. And one of my last sessions I've just done, they said, this is increasing. You're going to see this happening more and more often. what it used to be like 6 months or so would go by before we would feel a big shift. And now it's happening faster. And they said it has to because we're coming into the time when it is happening. And so it's speeded. That's why I was thinking when they were saying yesterday was this largest solar flare ever recorded ever. I think that's part of it. But the ETs also told me in one of the last sessions I just did, don't worry about solar flares. They said, we're controlling all of that. It won't affect the Earth like the scientists say it will. But I think the energy is affecting, that definitely affected the communications. And I think you're feeling it in your bodies. But they're not going to let anything happen to the Earth. They're taking care of it. So, okay. You may notice this, if you've been aware, since about 2003, it's gradually increasing. Some of the effects on the human body, and you don't have this all at the same time. You may have one symptom, and then a few days later you may have another symptom, but you go to the doctors can't find anything wrong with you because it has to do with the body's adaptation to the vibrations. Of course, the doctor's going to give you a pill anyway, but there's not anything wrong with you. Well, I think one of the last lectures I gave, I don't even remember what country it was in, this woman came up to me afterwards. Maybe it was LA, I don't know. I never know what country I'm in anyway. And she said, thank you for telling me these things. She said, I'm getting all these patients coming to me. We can't figure out what's wrong with them. And she said, now this will help explain it. Now that's an open-minded doctor to be able to go with this idea. So some of the symptoms that you may experience, high blood pressure, heart palpitations, where the heart gets to beating irregularly. But all of these things pass. But of course, they're frightening at the time. But they're passing as the body adapts to the different frequency. There's dizziness is a big one. Depression is another one that's big. But they don't last very long. And then we have joint aches and pains and ringing in the ears. Can you see where the ringing in the ears has to do with the energy and adjusting the frequencies? They said if you can't take it, just tell them, turn it down. It's a little too much energy. They'll always listen to you, but you have to ask. You have to ask anything. Turn it down. It's a little too much energy. That's what the ringing in the ears is. But all of these things don't happen at the same time. They'll be gradual. Last month, when we had these big shift that happened the beginning of the month and the middle of the month, I felt with the extreme dizziness. So I don't know if you felt these things or not. But if you know that's what it is, you just wait a day or so and your body adjusts and it levels out. So this is happening. You have no choice. You have to go through it anyway. You have to write it out. How are you going to get out of it? We're in this big change right now. There's no way to get out of it. So just go along with it or write it out. Everything's going to be fine. But anyway, the Earths are separating and we're going into the new Earth and the old Earth as we move forward in time. There's so much I could talk about all of this. Julie, I was thinking, what I think we will do is take a few questions, then we'll have a break because I do want to do this future progression with you. And this means we may go overtime. Well, we started late anyway. But then we can have a little break before we go into the future life. But let's ask a few questions, because I know you have lots of questions. Here, they're coming to get the microphone. And I always have Julie come up here because I have trouble understanding from way back there, and she has a lot of answers too. Because we get the same questions all over the world, everywhere we're going. Okay, you come on up here then. Okay, I give you an awful lot here, I know, but a lot more than I usually do. I usually have a lecture on one part, a lecture on another part, but who's the first one? Okay, go ahead.
If you have high blood pressure symptoms and you take medication or supplements, does that interfere with the change in your DNA?
Any medication interferes with everything. They say no drugs at all. Every drug has a side effect.
I take natural supplements like garlic and...
Well, the natural stuff they say is fine.
Okay.
But they say no surgery, no invasion of the body, and no drugs because they all have side effects. But remember, these are just temporary symptoms that you're going through. The supplements are fine.
Okay.
But you just write it out. But the drugs the doctor gives you is the ones that can cause problems because I don't think it's interfering with the vibrations. It's interfering with your health.
Right.
Okay.
I refuse those.
It's interfering with your adaptation to it. It's just making it rougher for the process. Okay.
Because I've had many of my clients where what's killing them is what the doctor is giving them. Because a lot of times the drugs are creating the very thing they're trying to get rid of. Okay, who else has a question?
I had a couple questions, but I'll try to keep them real brief. The real reason for Atlantis, can you tell me what book that is addressed in?
Which book did you talk about Atlantis in?
The real reason.
So the real reason for Atlantis was that?
Yes.
It was Convoluted 4.
4, okay.
The other stories of Atlantis are in Convoluted 1, but we found this one, and I thought it had to be in there because it relates to what's happening right now.
And it was the reason for the downfall of Atlantis.
Right.
Right.
That's the one that nobody has known about till now. We're repeating the same thing, the same circumstances. That's why we said we had to know it now. Yeah.
The pole shift Earth cataclysmic stuff, is that going to be part of the old Earth, and the new Earth will not be experiencing those, like geographic issues, tornadoes, earthquakes? I know we have been, but to a greater degree.
You're talking about the pole shift.
Pole shift and all the earth cataclysms, earth changes.
That's all dealing with the old Earth.
Okay. And
They made a remark in, see, I'm still getting information. It keeps coming in. And there's so many questions. And they said, we can't answer all your questions because we don't know. This is the first time this has ever happened in the history of a universe. So they're all watching. And they said it's the greatest show on earth. ETs, everybody are out there watching. Can we pull this off? But they said in one of the last sessions I had, compare it to somebody's dying, the soul is leaving the body. They're not going to hang around and be in that body as it goes. That's what I've found, especially in traumatic deaths. The soul leaves the body, and the body's going through the whole thing. So it's pulling away from the earth now as it's going through all of this trauma that's happening. It's gradually separating.
And my last question, and this is kind of a strange one, but I figure you're the person to ask. The concept of, I guess mythologically, fallen angels and
There's
ETs.
no such thing, but go ahead.
I'm sorry? No, how that would relate to ETs, if that was an ET thing or just...
There's no negative ETs, there's no fallen angels, but go ahead.
No, that was my question, is it just something that is mythologically created by the church, or how, like, where did...
Well, that would definitely be the church. Yeah, how can an angel fall?
Well, that was my question, is like, it was a confusing thing.
Angels are messengers from God. That's their main job. And they never enter a human body, and they're always working with God, and God is love. How can an angel fall? It
That's why I
sounds
was
like
asking.
a concept from God.
Thank you.
I mean, think, ask questions. I always tell people, use your mind, ask a lot of questions and think. Let me say something here before I forget. How many of you are noticing your diets are changing? This is on purpose because if you're going to ascend, if you're going to go to this higher vibration, the body has to become lighter. That means we have to get away from heavy foods, heavy meats especially. And look at all the additives and hormones that are going into the beef and the pork. That heavy meat will hold you to the earth. They said the best foods, and they've told me this thousands of times through all my clients, the best foods to eat are live foods, which means fresh fruits and vegetables. Organic if possible. You can eat some meat, some beef, wait a minute, I got it wrong. Some chicken or fish because that's a lighter type of meat. And it's not as contaminated as the rest. But they said as you go through this, you'll begin to notice you're eating more liquid meals. How many of you are noticing that? When I've been on the radio doing these shows, I get emails afterwards and they're saying, I wondered why I kept wanting to eat more smoothies. We're going to the liquid diets as the body becomes lighter. Now, after we're over on the new earth for who knows how long, we will eventually get to where we won't eat anything at all. And I think I'll take all the fun out of life. You know, we do like to eat some. But people are always asking me, when we make this shift, are we going to have to die to do it? No, you take your physical body with you. You won't even notice anything has happened. It's not going to be like, boom, here we are. It's so gradual that you won't even notice. I think one of the other speakers said something about, what was he talking about with that, about it being gradual? Oh, yeah. And that just like all of a sudden you'll notice things are different. Things are better. Things are lighter. They're happier. Things look different. Then you'll notice we are moving into that. That's how slow it is. But I was in Sweden last year, and a woman came up to me and said, I just want to tell you that I don't had any food or drink my whole entire life. She was a pretty blonde girl. Of course, she was very thin. But I wished I could have had more time to talk to her. And I've had clients that said they want to get to that point where they won't eat anything. And they're told it is possible. Well, immediately after I left Europe last year, I went to India to a big conference in a man-made pyramid. And there I brought that idea up. And this one other speaker said, I haven't had anything to eat since the 1990s. And she said she had been told that there are over 30,000 people in the world who don't eat anything. So it is happening. It's not as unusual as we think it is. I'm always getting new information all the time anyway. Okay, so let's do some more questions here. And then we'll have a short bathroom break. Yeah?
In reading all of your books, one thing has always bugged me, and you kind of mentioned it a while ago, animals, plants, people are born and they die. But if you live a life as a rock, you're created, so at what point do you leave that rock for your next life?
When you decide you've had enough. I've had people be giant redwood trees, and they'd been the redwood tree from the time it was a tiny seed till it grew to this great big tree. Then they finally decided, well, I don't know how many hundreds of years that would take. They said, okay, that's enough. I'm going to be something else. And they exit that tree then. I think it just gets to the point where you decide, okay, I've learned the lesson of being a rock. I'm going to go on and be something else. Or maybe you're ground up for gravel. You know? Who knows? But I've even had people be cells in the body. Imagine the information I get from all of these things. That you can be anything, you have to be it all. And one in China, we were doing our demonstrations, when we're doing the class, I make them go and practice. They're just starting. The first time they ever tried this technique, and they came back to report their cases on the last day. And I want to know what are you doing it right? What are you finding? And the one said he went to where he was not the fetus, he was part of the fluid around the fetus. And I said, wow, first time out of the gate, they're already getting fantastic information. And I said, they're going to be excellent over there learning how to do this. So you got to think you can be anything. Okay, who else? You got a couple of back here.
My question is, if the shift is gradual and we won't even know it, what happens to, say, family or friends that are left behind?
We get that question every lecture. You got to remember, when you come into the earth, you make your plan of what you're going to experience. You can never know what somebody else's plan is. Everyone is an individual soul, so your family and friends have their own plan. And you can never make anybody do anything. They all have their own thing. They have to make their own decisions. So whatever they decide is up to them. And we're not supposed to influence anybody to try to do something else. You don't know what stage of development they are. Well, I think it was her daughter that said, maybe you make a group. We do come in with groups, soul groups, and this is usually families. And we come back together many, many lifetimes. Maybe part of your soul plan is you're going to go together. So we don't know, but it's still up to the individual.
And one other thing that usually comes up with that is like, because you're coming from a point that you are assuming you know. And, and none of us know from this vantage point what anyone else is doing, what their soul plan is, like she said. So, and many times people are in your lives, what did Sherry say? They're relationship villains, and they're there, placed there by us to teach us things, probably to help us do what we need to do this. Well, they are playing their role. Now, it may look from our vantage point that, oh my goodness, you're not going anywhere, you're staying here. But all the while, they're here to help us do our thing. They could be so advanced and they're already there. You know, we don't know. You can't tell from this plane. So throw that one out the window. That's judgment. Throw it out. It holds you here. Okay.
You can just do the best you can and hope that they will develop along the same line. But we're thinking probably family groups have made a decision to come in and go through this whole thing together. Let's have a couple of more, and then we can have a bathroom break, and then we come back. We can still answer a few more questions, I think, before we do.
We're going to get out sometime tonight.
Okay, just a couple more anyway. We'll have a bathroom break. Yeah.
When I read your book on the 3 waves, I found myself before the first. So I was one of the people coming in saying, hey, this is the way we're going to do it. Ha ha. My question is, you say having children creates karma. Can you explain that a little bit more?
You answer that. See, we have heard these questions every lecture, the same questions. And she's always good at answering that one.
Well, remember what children are to you. You have a great emotional bond to a child. So there's a lot of things. It's harder to get this objectivity that you might have with anybody else in any other situation. You're really wrapped up with them. So that's where, and it's all in that, when you do that, that's where karma a lot of times can be created. Now, and she did say many. This is something we've gone over and over, because it used to be, you will, it was like this, you will, children create karma. It was an extreme statement. It has to happen. And it's like, no, it doesn't happen all the time. Remember, it's intention. And these...
I'm going to make a bathroom break. You can talk. Okay.
When you gotta go, you gotta go. Anyway, so one of the things is, they're saying, oh, it was really having the second wave, because that's where she made the statement. Second wave, don't want to have children. And then I have the second waivers coming up, but I want to have children. I was told the second wave is evolving. How many second waivers are having children now? And want to have children? Yes. It's because, it's your intent. And when waves have waves, and who better to have a wave than a wave? Okay? Make sense? Okay, any other questions? And I'll see what I can do. Well, we'll have one more, and then we will take a potty break, if anything I can answer. Yes? Okay, and thank you, and it was Foreman. She's asking if we know anything about timelines, and if you remember what Wayne said, it's not concrete. Okay, and what they're constantly telling me is keep your roller skates on. Okay, this is a rolling thing. Now, what they showed me was this is a very personal thing. This isn't something that's just going yum, bum, bum. You have this world that's made of the heavy emotional environment, and then you have the new earth that's made of, it's all the extreme of it, the very, very light, airy, all the extremes of that, okay? We're all scattered in here, wherever we are. And then by our emotional gauges, we are moving ourselves one direction or the other by our choices of how we react to things, okay? So if something happens and you choose to get all emotionally charged, that's what they told me was this one, we'll say it's red hot emotions, drama. That's what represents the old earth, okay? That's what represents over here. And then this one is light, ease, and joy. So that's your emotional gauge as to which direction you are moving in. When something happens, if it's drama and it's all, and all that stuff, guess which way you're going, okay? And that's all it is. It's just an indicator. And it's used by this right here, your feeling center, okay? That's going to tell you where you are. And every time you choose how you react to something, you're moving in the direction that you want. As you become more and more conscious of it, now you are guiding it. And then as you start, you're going to start getting where I like this feeling. And you'll do something and you react and you get over here, oh, I forgot about that. Yes, that's how, oh, it's horrible. Ugh, I don't like that one. I'm going to choose to keep reacting this way. This is when it becomes very conscious. This is when you are in charge of your own development. You are moving now, and you're moving toward this way. It's all a choice. People are moving in whatever directions they feel comfortable. Someone asked, okay, at what point then do the two separate? Can you see also by this, and that makes it no timeline. When do the two separate? And what they told me, it's when there are no more in the middle. And then the two can just, okay? And you will no longer be able to see what's going on over here or over here, depending on which one you're in. Based on that, it's all up to us and the 100th monkey and all this, because as we start doing these things, guess what? We're examples for everybody else. We're teaching just because we're doing.
It was something I just thought about after I get back from the break. If you want to go to the new earth, there's two things you have to do. Remember, most of us have been caught on the wheel of karma. Before you can go on to the new earth, you've got to get rid of all the old karma in your life. because that's a law of karma. If you're still making it, still holding on to it, you got to come back and repeat it. You can't get out of it. And we keep doing the same things over and over again. I say when I have clients, I said, you're carrying around all this baggage and this garbage. You got to let it go, or you can't go on. You have to come back and do it over again with the same people. And they'll say, I don't want to do that. I want to be rid of those people out of my life. Well, then you better work it out now. Because the only way to get rid of the old karma, you got to forgive. And people say, I can't forgive them. You don't know what they did to me. But remember what she was talking about, the villains that we make contracts with. You come in and play the villain. And then afterwards, they say they played their part very, very well. And then after they get on the other side, wow, I was a pretty good villain, wasn't I? But they're there to help you to learn something. But you've got to get rid of all this junk, the baggage and the garbage, or you're going to have to come back and do it again. You can't move on. So you've got to forgive. It doesn't matter if you had a terrible home life, if you were abused and mistreated as a child. It doesn't matter anymore. Let it go. So what if you had a terrible husband? Let it go. It's not important. You hold on to it, you're going to have to repeat it because you've got to get it worked out. This is part of the earth school. So the first thing you've got to do is forgive, release, and let it go. Get it out of your life. You understand how important this is? You don't know how many clients I see, especially with cancer, because they have not let it go. That's what causes these diseases, the garbage. The other thing you have to get rid of out of your life if you're going to go is fear. Fear is not real. Fear is an illusion. You hold on to fear, you are held on to the wheel of karma. You got to let it go. It doesn't matter. Fear is an illusion. Fear is for entertainment purposes only. Don't believe all this stuff you see on TV and what you hear in the newspapers. It's all to generate fear. Think for yourself. Ask lots and lots of questions. If it doesn't make sense, you make up your own mind. Does it make sense or not? But you're the one that decides. Don't buy into all the fear. That holds you to the earth. Now we're going to do a little exercise here to show you how you can forgive. It's easy, but you got to mean it. You remember I told you when you come into the life, you make contracts with people. You make your plan. You say, okay, you be the husband, I'll be the wife. You make these contracts with people when you come into the life. All right. I don't know how many of you need to forgive, but this would be a good exercise for you to do. And some people want to write it down afterwards. Of course, if you get the DVDs, it'll all be on there. Okay, see, it doesn't matter. You can't go to the person and talk to them directly. That's too hard to do. Many times the person that you're still angry about has already died, so you can't go and talk to them directly. This is the way you do it, and I'm going to show you how. Let's close your eyes. And I want you to picture that person in your mind, what they look like. And you say to that person, we tried, we really tried, it didn't work. Let's tear up the contract and see yourself tearing up the contract and throwing it away. Then you say to that person, I forgive you, I release you, I let you go. You go your way with love, I go my way. We don't have to be connected anymore at all. Okay, now you can open your eyes. But you have to mean it. Once you release them, they have no more power over you at all. They may try, but they can't push the buttons anymore. You know, it's just a game with people. That's all they want to do is play a game. They can't push your buttons once you have released them, forgiven them, and let them go. But you have to mean this with all sincerity when you do it. Not easy, I know. The next thing you've got to do is forgive yourself. Remember, it always takes two people. You've got to forgive yourself for whatever you did. Our friend Blair, who is a psychic that we travel with sometimes, he has an exercise he does where he says, I forgive everyone who has harmed me in this life or in any other life that I have ever lived. I forgive them and release them and let them go. And I forgive myself for anyone I have harmed in this life or in any other life in any way at all. I forgive them myself and release it and let it go. Once you do these things and you believe it, you won't have their problem anymore. But you got to do it. It doesn't do any good to keep holding on to this old junk. Can you understand? That'll hold you to the wheel of karma and the old earth, and you won't be able to go on any further anyway. Okay, you got it now? Okay, we're going to try to get out of here by 6 anyway. Okay. Now, we were saying we were going to do a future progression. In other times we've done this, I've done the past life regressions, I've done different things with the groups. What we're going to do with this, I'm going to show you how you can create what you want in your own life. I told you, you were past lives when you were creators. You helped create universes, you helped create planets, you helped create water, you created everything. Look what a powerful being you are. You did these things, but now you're in a human body, you forget the power you have. Remember, it's just a play, you are writing your own script. You can have anything you want. Nothing is impossible. They tell me time and time again through my clients, there are no limitations at all, except what you put on yourself. You can have anything you want. Of course, there's only 2 rules about creating your reality, 2 no-nos. One of them is, you never create anything that will harm any other person. And you never create anything that will take away from another person. You obey those 2 rules, you can have absolutely anything you want. They said the most important lesson you can learn when you come to Earth, the Earth School, is how to manipulate energy. Remember, everything is energy. The most important lesson you can learn on Earth is how to manipulate energy. So what does that mean? Create. You have to learn how to create before you can graduate anyway. But we can all do it. That's why we don't realize the power we have. Physical things are the absolute easiest thing to create. Now, we found out how this rule works, and we use it all the time in our business and everything, and we see miracles all the time. We know how to make it work. now we sit back and watch the magic, and it is magic. I told them a month ago, I want this auditorium full of people. And it's not going against anybody's free will because they're coming and getting a lot of knowledge out of the conference. It's for good. So I say, okay, guys, this is your next project. Do it. They did it, didn't they? I don't doubt them. We just know we put in our order and they fill it. It's their job. It's the universe's job to do anything you want, to give you anything you want. But you just don't believe it. You don't realize the power you have. But they said you have to ask. They don't know what you want until you ask. In May, we did a 2-day seminar in LA about creating your reality, the same thing. So some of these things we're going to be doing now are the same things me and Dee Wallace did out there, how to create your own reality. She said it's rather like you go to a hamburger fast food place. You go up to the counter, say, well, I want a hamburger. Okay. You don't tell them what kind of a hamburger, what do you want on it, or nothing. You just say, I want a hamburger. All right, they'll say, okay, we'll give her. We don't know what they want. We'll just give her a hamburger. You get it, and you say, but I don't like onions. I don't like pickles. You didn't tell us. You put in your order. It's their job to fill it. But if you're vague about it, of course you're going to get vague answers. You have to know exactly what you want before they can fill the order. You see what I mean? So what I want you to do, I imagine most of you here want something, don't you? In your life, job, an object, whatever, don't you? Before you can create what you want, you have to know what it is. And you know how many people that tell me, I don't know what I want. Well, then what do you expect you're going to get? They're sitting there ready to take down your order. We said, we don't know what they want. And I've got numerous examples of how that works. One woman said she wanted a car. She wrote down the make of the car, the year, the color, how much money she wanted to pay. She put in her order down to the last detail. She got her car. Only one thing wrong, it wouldn't run. Left out a little detail. I want a car that runs good too. You see what I mean? You've got to know exactly what you want down to the last detail. Then they'll fill it. Otherwise, it's vague. Another woman wanted a man in her life, and she puts in this order of all the qualities about him, what she wanted him to look like, personality, everything. And you send it out. She met the man. Only thing wrong was he was married. Forgot one detail. She said, okay, so she figured up the order again. This time she made that part of the requirements. I want him to be single. So this other man came into her life who filled all of the qualifications. The problem was he was 10 years younger than her, but she said, I can live with that. I don't think I need you to write this down, but I want you to think about it. What is it you want in your life? You can write it down if you want to, but write it down in detail so that if you were to visualize it, you could see it, you could hear it, if you even smell it. The more detail you can put into the mental picture of what you want to create, the more easy it is for them to know what you want. You see what I mean? I told you it took me 9 years to find my first publisher because I was way ahead of my time. But all that time, I kept visualizing my books in the bookstore. I saw them on the shelf. I saw people coming in and picking them up. I heard them talking. You've got to have detail in the mental picture. I filled all of this detail into it. Well, then one day, my daughter went into a bookstore, and she was just looking at the books, and she saw 3 books sitting on the shelf. And she just absentmindedly said, "Oh, those are Mama's books." And then she went on looking at the other books, and then she realized what she had said, because they weren't published yet. And she looked back at that shelf, and there was nothing there. You see how the law works? They were not taking away from anything. There was nothing on the shelf. Of course, now they're in bookstores all over the world. It happened. I had one man said he went into a bookstore after my first book was published, and see, the first ones were the 3 volumes of Nostradamus, so there were 3 books. The first book was published. This man wrote me, he went into the store, and he saw volume 1 and volume 2. We picked them both up and walked up to the cash register. I was going to pay for them, and he said, "I think I'll wait and get volume 2 later." So he took it back. So he only got the 1. When he went back to the store later, decided to get volume 2, they didn't have it. And I did was writing letters, and he wrote me and said, "What happened? Did the government pull it off the shelves or what?" I said, "No, it hasn't been published yet." Now, he was handling something that hadn't even existed yet. What would have happened if he would have taken that home? Would it have disappeared? Somebody else said he might have got home and found out it was a different book altogether. We don't know. But you see, when it's coming into reality, all of these strange and weird things happen. And my daughter was a nurse in intensive care and cardiac units for 20 years. But when she was in nursing school, she just thought, "It's horrible. I'm never going to get this. I'm never going to finish nursing school." And she was very depressed. So I told her, see it as already done. That's the key. See it as done. It's happened. See it as already done. You're doing what a nurse does. You're walking down the corridors in the nurse's uniform. You're taking care of the patients. You're living it. It's done. And so she began to visualize that, and it happened. Because if you can see it in your mind, visualize it, it must happen. That's a law of the universe. You learn to work with these laws of the universe, and everything becomes very easy for you. The law of the universe, if you can see it, it must happen. They have to fulfill your order. So I want you to think about what it is you want, but be specific. See it as already done, already accomplished. Don't worry about how it's going to happen. Some people say, "Well, I got to do this and this and this to make it happen." Then you're limiting them. Is saying that's the only way it can happen. See it as already done, already accomplished. They fill in the blanks. We have this happen all the time. They will make it happen in ways that you would never, ever imagine. If you say, "I've got to do this and this and this," you're limiting to them as the only possible way it can happen. You see where I'm getting at? Just say, "This is what I want," and you give an exact picture of what it is, release it to them, then we just sit back and watch the magic. Because it happens, and it happens very fast now, the way time is going. So don't worry about how it's going to happen. It will happen in a way that you would never, ever in a million years figure it's going to happen. And I could go with countless stories of what we're doing with our company, our business, and how they are constantly fulfilling what we want. All we have to say, here's the next project, guys. Do it, and you release it. It's a lot easier. You don't have to sit around and worry about it. You know they're taking care of it. You think you can believe this way? That's how you do it. You can write down your project if you want, but we're going to do an exercise, take you just a few years into the future and see what you're doing at that time. If you've accomplished whatever it was you were going to accomplish, or whatever it was you were going to do. I don't know if you're looking for be married, or if you're looking for a job, an object, money, whatever it is. Those are the easiest things anyway. But whatever it is you want to accomplish, can you think you've got it in your head now what it is you want? It's the only way it's going to happen. In detail. Okay, now we're going to take a trip into the future, just a few years, and we're going to see what you're doing at that time, if anything has changed for you, and you are able to get whatever it is that you want. That's why I wanted you to know first what it is you want. How can you create something if you have no idea what you want? Okay, you got it now? Okay. Now, we go into the future, you're going to have a choice. You can go 1 year, 3 years, or 5 years and see what's there. Just go with it. Just relax and just see what comes out. Have fun with it. If you don't see anything, that doesn't mean you're not going to be here. It just means you're not quite ready to see what it is yet. Or maybe you don't believe it enough, or you're not relaxed in allowing the pictures to come in. Let's just do this and see what happened. We did it in LA with Dee, and the people got remarkable things that they saw. So it's just a game anyway. You want to play the game? Okay. Okay. So I just want you to relax and close your eyes. And I want you to think about what it is you want to create. You see it as already accomplished. It's already done. You see it in detail. So now we're going into the future and see what the results are. So I want you to see yourself at the bottom of a long, tall staircase. Has big, wide marble steps. Walk up the steps toward the top level. We're walking up the steps of the big, wide marble staircase. And we come to a platform at the top of the steps. At the top of the platform, there are 3 doors. There's numbers on these doors. The one to your left has a 1 on it. This means 1 year into the future. The door directly in front of you has a 3 on it, which means 3 years into the future. The one to the right has a 5 on it. 5 years into the future. Choose the door you want to open. Open that door. As you open the door, you'll see a dense fog in front of you. I want you to move through that fog. As you walk through the fog, it will begin to dissipate and fade until you're able to come out on the other side of the fog. Look around you and see where you are. This will be your surroundings in the year that you picked. Where are you? What does it look like? Trust it, see it in detail. Now see yourself doing whatever it is you will be doing at that time. What is your job? What is your occupation? See yourself doing it. Now, switch scenes and see where you are living. What kind of a place does that look like? Where are you living? See it in detail. Is anyone living there with you? If there are, see them and you'll recognize them. Now leave that scene, and we're going to move forward to an important day in this future time. An important day when something is happening that you consider to be important. We're there now. What's happening? What do you see? All right. Now we can leave that scene and bring your focus back into this room, remembering what you have seen so you'll be able to write it down. Coming back into this room, into this body, into this room, and you're aware there's other people sitting around you. You're beginning to wake up now, and you can open your eyes and remember what you have seen. We're back here now. Open your eyes and look around. Okay. And this is something I do want you to write down, what you saw. Did many of you see something you were not expecting? Did you see yourself in a different kind of a job? Different kind of a house? Think about whatever it was and write it down. Because remember, if you can visualize it like this, it must happen. This is how easy the law of the universe works. No matter how crazy it seemed, trust it. Write it down. And do this when you can do it when you're going to sleep at night. Think about what it is you want to create. See it in detail as already accomplished. And it must happen. Okay, that makes sense to everybody? Gives you an ongoing exercise to practice anyway. Okay, I think that we've come to the end now, and we have gone over, but this was something I promised you I would do. I want to thank all of the speakers we had. I think they did a marvelous job over these 3 days, and I hope you all got a lot out of these 3 days. Okay. Thank you.